Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today let's talk about the 30 best characters in the game. That's right, we're doing another meta snapshot, but this time I listened to your advice and I split it up into two different lists. So we're technically looking at two lists of 30, but there's lots of overlap, and these are the 30 best PvE and 30 best PvP characters. Now, really quickly to give you the idea for each list, for PvE content, I'm primarily basing it off of World Boss Ultimate clears, both how many different modes they can do. So characters that can defeat Corvus, Proxima, Thanos, and Ebony are more valuable than ones that can only beat Cull Obsidian. And also how high they can go. So even though a character may be only able to beat a couple of the bosses, if they can push much higher than other characters can, then it's more important. Additionally, I will be taking into consideration ABX or Extreme Alliance Battle scores for the character for PvE. I'm not going to be talking about Shadowland or considering it. For the PvP side of things, I'm primarily looking at Timeline Battle and Alliance Conquest with some consideration to Alliance Tournament as well. So these are the game modes that I'm primarily looking after and measuring when I talk about the best characters. Now, there is a small consideration for how difficult it is to gain the character and to kind of get them to their level. Additionally, I've kind of changed the look of the lists a little bit because I've taken away the ranking system in terms of where characters or where heroes moved up and down, the pluses and the minuses. I didn't think that information was really valuable to you guys. So instead, next to the character, I put their level. So if there's nothing next to the character, you can just assume it's level 60 tier 2. But for those of them that have it, level 70 will be there, indicating that they can get to level 70 in gear 25, which is the assumption I'm making to put the character at that level. And then also tier 3 means, of course, that they're at tier 3. If you guys want additional information on the next list, let me know down in the comments below. I can also include a short form for their uniform preference. So for example, next to Thanos on the number 2 for PvP, I could put IW so that it's Thanos Infinity War uniform 70. So let me know what you guys think. I don't know if it's going to look too cluttered or too messy or too confusing, but I leave it up to you because ultimately these lists are for you guys. So starting it off, we're going to go through PvE because I think that is the more requested and the more valuable list for the majority of players. I think the majority of players play this game as a single player adventure and they just want to smash it as efficiently and as satisfactorily as possible. You just want to dominate your enemies. So for PvE content, this is what you need to know. Scarlet Witch is of course at the top of the list, whether she's the main damage dealer, leadership, striker, she basically does it all. The only game mode that she really doesn't have a dominant effect in is Extreme Alliance Battle. However, she can score well on the no restriction day with 2 supports. I just cannot stress how good she is for World Boss Ultimate. And frankly, for other characters like Captain America tier 3 or Deadpool tier 3 or even Cable and Thor, they would not be as good in World Boss Ultimate if it wasn't for Scarlet Witch striking for them. Cable in particular can look like a garbage, bottom 30 of this list. Clear for World Boss Ultimate if Scarlet Witch never hits her 4th skill. If Scarlet Witch hits her 4th skill consistently, Cable looks like a god. So there's really no doubt in my mind that if you have her on your team, it's going to make an enormous difference to how well you can clear World Boss Ultimate especially. But also she can help you at least on one day for Extreme Alliance Battle. Moving along down the list, the only reason why I really put Deadpool ahead of Captain America was the fact that he can push higher stages of Corvus more efficiently and more consistently. Because Deadpool's 6th skill, his ultimate skill, is just a click skill. It doesn't have to be charged up or positioned. It's much smoother. And unfortunately for Captain America, if your device is not perfect, if there's any kind of lag in the high 40s for World Boss Ultimate, you're going to struggle. And getting the timing down on Heroic Charge, not having the World Boss iframe away from you is really a challenge, and it's frustrating. and sometimes you want to use strikers like Scarlet Witch that mind control, sometimes you don't. It's really bizarre, so that's why I docked Cap a couple points. But of course, Captain America is the de facto #1 Extreme Alliance battle character in the game. So keep that in mind. He rocks 2 million with this uniform, or close to 2 million with this uniform. He's good for combat day, combat female. He's good for no restriction. He's just a boss all around. Now, moving along down the list, we've got Cable there, level 70. Keep that in mind. He's huge, topping over, almost 3 million score in ABX now. And of course, he rocks Thanos, Corvus, Proxima, and Cull Obsidian. He can only not do Ebony Maw. Quicksilver is, yes, back again at the top, for better or for worse. He seems to be slightly better than Winter Soldier for Extreme Alliance battle, and he seems to be at least as good as Winter Soldier is for World Boss Ultimate. Now, he doesn't have as much damage accumulation on his 3rd skill, and it doesn't give him immunity, so he's a bit squishier, but he does have some other advantages that Winter Soldier doesn't have, and he has some consistency given the fact that he has a flat 50% on his skills rather than having 100% only when he hits certain abilities, the way that Winter Soldier does with his uniform. But we'll have to wait and see who gets their tier 3 first to really determine the leader there. The only real difference right now, I think, and why people might think that I'm wrong about this, putting Quicksilver above Winter Soldier, is that a lot of people don't have Quicksilver level 70 gear 25. So they're still comparing him, yes, with the uniform, but without those other factors. And you do definitely need to consider that a lot of you guys have Winter Soldier level 70, already upgraded some of his gears, and he's not that much better than the boy with the white hair. Moving on down the list, Ant-Man, Strife, Apocalypse, Iron Man, and Black Panther. I really don't have a solid, I'm not 100% confident in those positions. So if you want to take issue with them, I welcome you to. Please only disagree with me if you have those characters tier 3. But I think in Iron Man's case, he does appear to be, although still squishy, still very good for World Boss Ultimate, but not very good for Extreme Alliance battle. On the other hand, Black Panther seems to be pretty good for both, although I still question his ability to do more than one stage of Extreme Alliance battle, i.e. Proxima, or sorry, World Boss Ultimate, possibly Corvus, but I know he can't do Ebony, I know he can't do Cull Obsidian, and then Thanos seems a bit difficult because in spite of his amazing 6th skill, King of the Undead, he only has 1 or 2-ish kind of good iframes, and the other skills, especially Unseen Predator, really leaves him open to punishment if he gets debuffed, or if the enemy has penetration like Thanos does with the purple skills, can really just rip through Black Panther easily. Moving on down the list, I think probably the biggest shocker for you guys is Jean Grey. She's very low down on this PvE list. Frankly, the problem is that despite how much it costs to get her, her damage just has not scaled. She's never gotten a uniform, and it's just not that easy to time her damage procs. You have to cancel her 3rd skill, then cancel her 5th skill, then hit her 4th skill, and you have to do all of that in a very tight time frame just to hit the damage proc. And then the next time you do it, you can't even do the 3rd skill because it's got a 25-second cooldown. She just has a bit of an awkward skill set, believe it or not, for PvE content. And frankly, Jean Grey has not been good for Extreme Alliance battle for a long time. I want to say at least 6 or 8 months. So it's really only World Boss Ultimate that we're talking about. Now, she is good. She can do, of course, Ebony. She can do some Cull. She can do some even Corvus and Thanos. But she's definitely not in the top 10 for DPS. She's just fallen behind compared to other characters. And the revive doesn't help her in extreme modes for ABX and for World Boss Ultimate. Psylocke, on the other hand, because she can get to level 70 and because she has the mind control to keep the enemy from iframing or dodging her attacks, she can really dish out the damage. The problem is she's no good for Extreme Alliance battle, and she's also quite squishy. So if you don't play carefully, she will die. Whereas Jean, you don't have to play carefully because you can always live again. Moving along down the list, Ant-Man, War Machine, Nova, Luna Snow, all those characters. I did put in Ghost Panther and Shuri partially to recognize just how powerful they are as support characters. Now, I don't normally do this, but in Shuri's case, especially against the new Thanos World Boss Ultimate, she is super useful because she can kite for you, you can switch to her, she can do some damage, you know, she can do 30, 35 of Corvus World Boss Ultimate, so she's definitely no useless character on her own, but she also provides that invaluable tier 2 passive effect. So I really had to recognize that for PvE content. She enables so many characters to go above and beyond. No Restriction Day, Speed Hero Day, Female Speed Hero, and of course for almost every high level World Boss Ultimate clear. And then she's also decent on her own. And that's why I don't include Valkyrie and Coulson, because they're just not decent on their own. I don't have Ghost Panther tier 2, so of course I am guessing a little bit on his value, but I would imagine he's a bit better than Shuri at least, and that puts him at least a couple of points higher than her, possibly higher. I just didn't think it was a good idea to put him above tier 3 Spider-Man, because I know you guys are going to hate me for that, but Spider-Man's tier 3 just doesn't do a lot of damage, and his tier 3 stats don't jump enough for him to do a lot of damage. And that's just kind of the way it is, guys. So that is the PvE list. The end of the list there, Inferno, Loki, Black Widow, Ghost, and Ebony Maw, I was a little bit unsure about, so I do welcome your feedback and your constructive criticism on how I could improve that bottom kind of 5 characters. I did put Ghost there almost exclusively for ABX because she's not really useful outside of a leadership for World Boss Ultimate, but I want to know what you guys think about those characters for those game modes. Moving on into PvP, we have a pretty different list, and quite a few characters that you see on the PvP list are nowhere to be found on the PvE list. PvP is game modes that, of course, are player versus player. It sometimes ends up being AI versus AI, but we're primarily, again, looking at timeline battle, alliance conquest, and then alliance tournament. Now, in this case, characters are valued a little bit differently. Defensive stats, revives, heals are much more valuable. How long a character can take punishment for, type advantages, even priority of iframes is really an important factor, in addition to how they play in a group of 3 when it comes to things like conquest and tournament mode. So this list should not be surprising that Jean Grey's at the top. She's dominated PvP for as long as she's been around, and any week that she's not banned in timeline battle, you're just going to see a bunch of Jean Greys no matter what, and that's not a coincidence. That's not something that just happens. It's because she's just that good. And the thing with Jean Grey is if you lose, you get another try. So it's super easy. You know, you always have basically 4 characters in timeline versus anyone else's team of 3. And that's why characters with revive like Corvus, Adam Warlock are here and maybe a lot higher on the list than you might expect because of that revive. Thanos, of course, just the ultimate tank character, and he's just super annoying to deal with. His 4th skill is a very high priority iframe, so he can interrupt almost any other character's iframe, any other hero or villain's iframe for his own, which makes him extremely difficult to deal with. And remember, gear 25, level 70, he induces nightmares. That's how tanky he is. Moving along, you can see Spider-Man, very, very, very high up on the list. Now, while I didn't put him very high on the PvE list, I have to be very honest. He is a nightmare to fight against, and if you don't have web immunity, you're toast. And in Alliance Tournament, he seems to be a pretty decent option for a lot of teams to use. He seems to be semi-consistent, so I did have to show him a lot of respect there for his contributions in PvP. Moving down along the list, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, primarily for things like Conquest and Alliance Tournament. Captain America, Nova. Nova, especially for tournaments, still shows up, and Timeline Battle shows up when Jean Grey especially is banned, because he can one-shot a lot of characters with his 2nd skill. The rest of the tier 3s are not really surprising. Thor, Captain America, Deadpool. Thor, I don't see him a lot in tournament. I don't see him at all, I would say. But I do imagine that... I do see him. I'm not imagining seeing him a lot in timeline battle. I see a lot of tier 3 Thors, and it hurts every time, but he does one-shot my Deadpool tier 3 pretty frequently. I would want to say like 40% of the time I get one-shotted by Thor tier 3 when he uses Force of the Thunder God. So I gotta give props to the guy. It's happened to me, first-hand experience. He's not bad. Doctor Strange, you know, level 70. He's got the Ignore Iframe on his first skill, which was an undocumented mega buff. And we all know the rest of the Doctor Strange kit is just nightmare-inducing for you and kind of dream-inducing for him. Moving down, we got Adam Warlock for the heal, or for the revive, Wolverine for the heal. We still see a lot of Wolverine, and I think if you build him super defensively, he can still be a threat, although Alliance Tournament has kind of passed him by. He's still kind of a, you know, 1B tier character, a step down from your Jean Greys and your Thanoses for things like Conquest and Timeline. Strife is there primarily for the leadership, but he's also a huge pick whenever Jean Grey is banned, and his damage is nuts, and I'll be doing a review on him soon because he's a bit of an interesting guy. Angel is there primarily for the leadership, but he also is very annoying for Alliance Conquest. I've seen clips. Corvus, similar to Jean Grey and Adam Warlock. Wasp is there primarily for the tier 2 passive to the team. Based just on frequency of how often you see Wasp, she might be in the top 10 for most used PvP characters. That's just how powerful Winsome Wasp is. But keep in mind, her contributions as a standalone character are not that great. But she can beat characters if they don't have guard break immunity. So keep that in mind. Winter Soldier, a lot of people overhyped him in PvP. He's kind of a one-trick pony. Either he hits you with the fear effect and he kills you, or he dies instantly. It's really kind of one or the other. He's still a glass cannon, and it's not really going to change whether he has this uniform or another. Ant-Man, Blue Marvel, Black Panther Tier 3. Again, I've seen some videos of Black Panther Tier 3 with a Refinement Obelisk, but it's not enough for me to really sway in the direction of, oh yeah, this guy's top 10 for sure. Top 20 is still very respectable, and I was impressed how much his HP kind of held up against considerable damage, but it's still not enough, and I still don't see enough Tier 3 Black Panthers to really make a more aggressive call than just top 20. Rounding out the list, we have the sad decline of Dormammu. We got Spider-Man 2099, still can put up a fight, but just, you know, not really hanging in there with the level 70s these days. Psylocke. Psylocke is an interesting case. She does a lot of damage, and she can lock your team, get it, with her Butterfly Phantasm, but she can also die in just one hit. You sneeze on her and she dies because she's super fragile. So it's kind of like Strife, just a little bit worse than Strife. That's why she's lower down on the list. And she doesn't have the meta leadership. Under Psylocke, Destroyer and Colossus are there almost exclusively for the Reflect, especially for Alliance Conquest. They're basically just death pylons if you happen to stack all physical or all energy and you're just asking to get reflected back to wherever you came from. Sounded like I said ass there. And then we have Iron Man, Star-Lord, Black Widow, Ebony Maw, and Odin. Odin I kind of put there just a little bit out of pity for the guy, but also because I know that he's still very good in 3 versus 3 for Conquest because of Asgardian Barrier. He also has the meta leadership. Ebony, of course, the tier 2 passive now with the new uniform, leadership, mind control, we can't forget that. But I don't see a lot of these characters outside of Conquest, sometimes in Timeline, but it's much less common than pretty much everybody else on this list. So again, the top or the bottom 5 there, 30 to 26, I'm a little bit iffy about. I want to put tier 3 Iron Man higher, but honestly, can I? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the abbreviations if you want a little bit more information next to characters' names. Let me know what you think of the dual list if you want to see it again next time, or if you want 2 separate videos, one for PvP, one for PvE. Let me know. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.